Let me talk about direct praise. I know all of us like to say very good, terrific, I love it, but that doesn't tell the child what he's doing. That is terrific, very good, I love it. And very often when you say that, the children will often forget what was very good because they're on to the next thing. What I encourage you to do to motivate the children to continue to learn is to tell them exactly what they are doing that is great and then tell why it was great. For example, I would say to Anthony, you read out loud to yourself. That's great because you remember more when you hear yourself read. She told Anthony what he did and why it's important. And he now knows the strategy that he needs to use in order to remember text. She might also say to another child, I noticed that you're writing key words. Writing the words will help you remember them. Writing key words is a great way to remember information. So, tell the child what he or she is doing that is correct. Tell them how he is doing it and why it is important. And that direct praise motivates children to go further. It's much better than a star or a grade. They're doing this for themselves, and it becomes intrinsic rewards. Next is editorializing, and I do this in my graduate classes quite often. I'm sort of embarrassed when someone asks me questions. I'll say, oh, that's a terrific question. Or somebody will ask something that I'm not quite so sure about, and I'll say, that's interesting, and I really don't want to say that. Because what I'm doing is evaluating and giving them a grade. And what about the students who don't say anything worthwhile at all and I choose to ignore out of ignorance? The kinds of things that hurt kids and stop them from being motivated is when they hear children being reprimanded or themselves being reprimanded verbally, when in fact it's not really meant to be that way. So, editorializing about children's work in front of the class can be humiliating. For example, Jenny, you can do better than writing only 3 sentences, and maybe she can, but saying it in front of the children is going to stop Jenny from doing any more. Because it's a humiliating factor, saying to kids, oh, you didn't do your best. Another kind of humiliation that embarrasses a child, although we don't mean it, can be, if you need help punctuating, Sam, look at how Jim did it. And that what happens is that Jim becomes the expert. And not only is he the expert, Sam is the dummy. So Sam has to get back in Jim. They go out to the playground. Sam punches Jim. Now, not only he's stupid, he's a bully. So we really need to be careful how we praise our youngsters and how we guide them and facilitate them to want to do more through appropriate motivation. We like to do that by using prompts that motivate children to want to say and write more on their own. We've identified 7 of them. And I'd like to share how some of them are used, and I'd like to start with and. I worked in a preschool in Brooklyn, New York, where English was a second language, and the development of the vocabulary was very minimal, English language vocabulary. They used show and tell as a means to guide children to say more, and I went into a classroom of 4.5-year-olds, and a little 4.5-year-old got up with a toy motorcycle and held it up, and he said, this is my toy motorcycle. And unknowing to the child, I was there, and I crept behind him, and I got behind him, and I said, this is my toy motorcycle, and the child turned around and looked at me, and he said, this is my toy motorcycle, and it's black. And I turned to him, and I said, and it's black, and he looked back at me, and he said, and it's black, and he's wearing a helmet. And I turned around to him again, I said, he's black, and he's wearing a helmet, and he's wearing big shoes, and he goes very fast. And I said, and he's wearing big shoes, and I'm going very fast. And this is when the child said to me, and that's enough, which told me quite clearly he had been prompted enough and motivated enough to say as much as he possibly could under the circumstances. We use and to say more. We use or as an alternative. We use because, so the children tell why or justify. We use so, which is the results of or the end of the story or the product. We use but, which is conditional. We use why as justification. And we always like children to justify things by saying, how do you know that? Not a question, but we make the assumption with our voices by saying, how do you know that? And they feel powerful. So background knowledge lures children. Motivation for learning when self-esteem is built using direct praise. Children are praised for taking risks. Teachers' comments always address what the child has done and what he or she needs to do next, not what she's done wrong. And last, teachers use prompts that coach children to create text.